And Jose asks, Medicare has introduced digital quality measures. Won't we have to use eCQMs to be in compliance with digital measurement?
Great question, Jose. There's few things that have engendered more confusion since Medicare made the announcement, than that announcement about digital quality measures. Um, and there's a bunch of holes in your logic that digital quality measures equals eCQMs. First, Medicare introduced digital quality measures in rulemaking for the 2022 performance year. And then, I made certain assumptions myself as I read the details about that, and then heard Molly McCarris of CMS answering the question at NACOS in this fall 2022 recent meeting. When I first read it sounded like one, there was a desire to be able to use any digitally coded data to go after measures, and also kind of a goal to someday be able to get all measures from digital sources. Um, uh, the two laudable goals, but no real time frame to get there, and I don't think certainly the kind of a process that they may never be able to achieve. Um, Molly McHarris at the NACO's fall 2022 meeting described it as a concept, really not so much looking at what you can't do, but a thought that other data sets were emerging that it might be nice to include in measures, and particularly looking at wearable devices, remote patient monitoring, and things like that, and recognizing if that data exists, maybe we could have some measures that tap into that. And certainly an interesting thought. I can also imagine that again, a goal that may never be achieved. And if it were to be achieved, I think qualified registries are probably closer to being able to deliver on that than than ECQM. The ECQM process is. After all, the one thing in the ECQM process you have to consider that eCQMs have to deal with a certified chain uh, of data. And therefore, particularly with the plethora of wearable devices and remote monitoring options that are occurring out there, you've got to imagine that to put it into an eCQM, uh, an EHR would have to internalize the data first, make sure it's part of the certified platform, and then report on it. And with the problems we see with EHRs that are purportedly using standard nomenclature, standard data standards, they don't play well together. And when you add that the complexity of going to lots of innovative small companies doing remote monitoring, you can wonder how it can ever come together. In reality, it doesn't. Again, it may never become anything in the rules. If it does come into the rules, I think there's no reason to expect eCQMs will own that process. MIPS CQMs are just as likely, and then probably for those barriers of certification, more likely to be able to rise to that the challenge. I wonder now. Malik McHarris didn't bring this up, that Medicare is actually moving toward an all digital requirement, or hoping someday to get to an all digital requirement. And I've seen that through the years as part of their strategy statements. Again, I'm not sure if they'll ever be able to deliver on it, but I do see the possibility that that's in the concept of digital quality measures. But again, there's no reason to think that's the sole that leaves you with eCQMs as a sole source. In fact, in the rigidity of eCQMs can only use digital data that's in their EHRs, not even all the digital data, as we've discussed. Whereas the typical qualified registries are using the same digital EHR data that ECUMs are using, plus others. Um, if Medicare suddenly says I can't use certain manually sourced data sources or non-certified sources, it just makes my job easier as a qualified registry. That is, we don't have to use to accommodate as many different data sources as we do now. So I think I would expect any good eCQM or registry vendor to keep up with those certification standards and do whatever's required in terms of certification or qualification to keep using that and to keep serving you. So, Jose, with great confidence, I'd suggest you can continue using your qualified registry or your eCQMs in the face of this undefinable or this pie in the sky concept of digital quality measures. Thanks for the great question, Jose. I hope I've been able to bring a little bit of illumination to the subject.